Wonderful, wonderful. We are off to a sensational start, and this is why I don't normally stream late night because we have started muted. That is always good. So I'll start that one again. Welcome to Late Night Live on Spill the Tea Lou. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching live, you are incredible. I know it's past some people's bedtimes. You've had enough of the football for the evening. So if you are watching on the catch up, thank you to you as well. Please do smash the like button on your way into the stream. Get involved in the poll. And I see our Marv. Marv, normally we have a problem with the time difference, but because I'm streaming at a time that's crazy over here, it works for you. This is excellent. I might have to do like a 1 o'clock stream every morning just for Marv. Marv is here with his champers. Kavos is in the house. Thank you for being here, Kavos, and hi to you. But I do have a poll in the chat. The poll reads, which result was the most surprising in the Champions League tonight? Because we have had some serious surprises over the last few days. The options I have put in are for tonight only: Newcastle, Liverpool, Spurs, or no surprises, the Prem teams be cray. I did try to write cray, but unfortunately I ran out of characters. Bear with me, I can hear an echo. I am trying to get rid of it. There we are, that should be a bit better. We do already have some votes coming in. So far, we have 50% of people voting for Newcastle was the most surprising result tonight. 33% of people say Liverpool, 17% are saying no surprises, Prem teams be cray. Now, people, I am a little bit forgetful, so if I forget to end the poll later in the stream, please do remind me. But let's get started. So I'm actually going to work my way backwards this evening. I know normally I start with the earlier game and I work my way down, but I actually thought the Liverpool game, they were all surprising the results. I was very surprised by all of them, bar maybe Newcastle. I thought Newcastle would give a good account of themselves, but I have to say, the Liverpool match, it was a really, really good match to watch. It was really interesting. I thought Liverpool actually gave a really good account of themselves. And I can't believe I'm saying this as a United fan, but obviously we need the Premier League teams to do well because we're hoping it's going to be a top five. So that way, in case we make any little mishaps in the Premier League, it will be for 5 spots, not for 4 for Champions League next season. So we need the Premier League teams to do well. Therefore, we are going to be rooting for Arsenal and Liverpool the whole way through the rest of this tournament, which is a little bit crazy. And I see we have John Hassam, the number one fraud himself, has joined us. He wants to hear about Liverpool. Isn't it good? That's who we were going to talk about anyway. But let's get stuck into that match. So I found Liverpool started that match really, really well. They started, fast. They started on the front foot. They started attacking. They were playing really well. You could see that they were up for the match. You could see they wanted to win. They were at the races, which hasn't always been the case so far this season. However, the way that Leverkusen or Galatasaray chose to take the sting out of the match was to keep going down injured. So all of their players just went down injured here, injured there, injured everywhere. And it was cutting the flow for Liverpool, basically. It was making it that they couldn't play the football that they were trying to play. And obviously this was a tactic that Galatasaray were hoping was going to work. I see our lovely iNotes is in the house. Please do smash a like on the way into the video, people. As I said, Late Night Live, thank you all very much for being here. Nice to see the familiar faces in the house. But what happened then was Osimhen goes down injured. The problem is, because they've been throwing themselves on the ground every 5 seconds, the Liverpool players are looking at Osimhen going, he's not really injured, he's stalling again. Can these Galatasaray players please stop throwing themselves on the ground every couple of minutes? Which led to the Liverpool players getting frustrated and trying to pull him off the ground. As it turns out, this injury was in fact not fixed. He was genuinely injured. It looks as if he's broken something inside his arm, but he incredibly decided that he wanted to continue to play throughout the half despite being absolutely stone useless to his team. I can see we have some lovely Raiders joining us in the house. Thank you, everybody who is coming in. Please do smash a like on the video. It is lovely to see some lovely faces in the chat. And of course, we have John Hassam himself announcing his own raid, because that is the most glamorous way to announce a raid, is when you go and announce it yourself. I see obviously our lovely Ray Ray is in the house, Dinesh is here, Kavos is here, all of the lovely faces. And some lovely new faces. So Soul Divide is in the house and a few others. So Kavos is asking me, we're going to go back to Liverpool in a minute. Do I know any routes to get jobs related to football? If I did, I probably wouldn't be streaming at 1 o'clock in the morning. So if you find the way, let me know. And obviously, our very lovely Jenny is in the house. Thank you for being here. But back to Osherman. So after all of the Galatasaray players flung themselves on the ground, basically for the whole start of the match, Liverpool are getting frustrated. Osherman actually hurts himself. Everyone's trying to pull him off the ground. And then he makes the most miraculous recovery you've ever seen. Leaps off the ground and starts shouting at, I'm pretty sure it was Szoboszlai. He was like getting in Szoboszlai's face. And then obviously in the audience, you're going, well, he's not that injured if he can just jump up off the ground. Then they have to strap him up. And all just so many issues. But as I said, he continued to play despite the fact that he was clearly very injured, which obviously was in Liverpool's favour. But you have to wonder what's going through the Galatasaray manager's head. Osherman's telling him, I want to stay on the pitch. He's broken something inside his arm. And the manager's going, yeah, okay, you just stay on the pitch then. Like, no, you are the manager. Grow some, sub him off. He is no use to you with a broken arm on the pitch. But anyway, he leaves him on for the rest of the half. However, a few minutes later, Torreira is on the ground. Then there was another one on the ground, and it just led to the match being very stop-start. The more Liverpool tried to play, the more Galatasaray tried to stall and throw themselves on the ground. I see a few people in the chat wondering, who do I support? I am a Manchester United fan for my sins. Don't hold that against me. My team makes me suffer enough. I don't need banter as well. My team banter me on the regular. I don't need any extra help in that department. But Marv here is saying, Baldy survives to coach again. Is he a head coach? Is he a manager? It's hard to know these days because it changes by the minutes. But anyway, in between all the stopping and starting that the Galatasaray players were doing, Atletico was stringing some attacks together. He looked very, very, very bright in the first half. And obviously Szoboszlai, who has been the best player for Liverpool by a country mile for the entire season, also getting involved in the attacks. The reason I bring up Ekitike is it's actually the best I have seen him play for quite some time. But look, they were giving it a go. They were trying, despite the best efforts of Galatasaray to delay the match and kind of break Liverpool's rhythm. Eventually, Szoboszlai gets through and he makes it 1-0. Quite ironically, it was a set-piece goal. The reason that I say that's quite ironic is, for those that are new to the channel, I actually did a video before Christmas on set pieces. Liverpool were, prior to Christmas, at the time I did the video, were the worst ranked Premier League team for set pieces. They conceded the most and had scored the least set pieces in the entire Premier League. Since January, so after the Christmas period, that has actually completely changed. I think these are about mid-table now at this point. But so I thought it was quite ironic that the goal that you managed to score was a set-piece goal, because it shows something that you had been struggling with that actually you have now decidedly improved on, which is obviously what you want to see when it is your club. After that, Mohamed Salah nearly makes it 2-0, but the keeper stops it. And you have to wonder, this was the one where he could have basically went around the keeper. You know, he could have chipped him, he could have went around him. The shot was just nothing. It really wasn't a good shot, and I thought it was quite symptomatic of the season that Mohamed Salah has had. I don't think there is any sort of saying he's not talented, he hasn't been a good player. This season, he just hasn't been at the level. He just absolutely hasn't been at the level at all. Um, Gunman. Gunman is wondering, what is this? I mean, Gunman, you can feel free to leave the stream. You're not here. You're not kidnapped. You know what I mean? You just press the little X on your screen. Nobody's forcing you to stay. Um, Guys, anybody who is new to the channel, obviously, I very much appreciate you being here. I appreciate you taking time out of your day, your evening, your night to watch the stream. You are more than welcome to be here. I hope you do enjoy what we talk about. I hope you get involved in the chat. However, I don't tolerate nonsense. So if it's going to be nonsense, take yourself off somewhere else. Not what the channel is about. The channel is very much just about having a chat. It's very much chilled, relaxed, football chat, different teams, different fans, different opinions. Once it's expressed respectfully, belt away. We don't always have to agree, but there is no need for rudeness. And as I said, just not really welcome on the channel. So find the X, click it. If you want to just have a bit of a chat about football, please do stay and get involved. Yes, yes, I do know he redirected us. He told me he was going to be redirecting us. But yeah, new people are fine. Opinions are fine. Probably just less of the shit. You know, maybe I'm the shit, which is a good thing, you know. So maybe we'll go the other side of it. But Christopher is saying stats don't win games, goals do. Absolutely correct and right. And that is something that we are going to be talking about when we're looking at some of the other games. And actually, on the match reactions from yesterday, we talked about that. Not necessarily stats, but possession, which obviously becomes a stat. It doesn't matter how much possession you have if you don't do anything with it. It's pointless. You need to score the goals, which is exactly what Christopher was saying. But back to the match, and then I will go into Gunman. I blanked your comment. Gunman, I don't know if you can see an awful lot of comments come in there at the same time. So I will finish what I'm talking about in the match, and then what I will do is go through the comments. So obviously, as you're new, you won't really know the format of the show. So I'll go through the match. I'll talk about what happened in the match. I'll highlight the key points, and then what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll do like a section where I'll go through all of the comments. And then I'll go to the next match and we'll do exactly the same thing. So it means I highlight the key points, everybody can say what they want to say, and then we'll get a load of comments all at the same time rather than kind of comment me, and it breaks it up. It's very much like your match this evening against Galatasaray. We're breaking up the flow of things. So I'll do what I'm saying and then into your comments and then back again, okay? But don't worry, I don't ignore the comments. I go through the comments. I just like to have a proper section on them so everybody kind of gets seen and heard. As well, sometimes people put multiple comments on the same topic, so I get to see everything at the same time. And so there we are. But yes, so Salah could have made it 2-0. He didn't. I don't know why he didn't just go around the keeper. I don't know why he didn't chip the keeper. I don't know why, because it's not as if he can't. He clearly can. He didn't, unfortunately. But look, he didn't go 2-0, but just he's kept the 1-0. He's kept the pressure on. And Liverpool, very much so, it was like attack after attack after attack after attack. You did feel that more goals were inevitable, and definitely Liverpool were absolutely on top for essentially the entire match, to be fair. You know, Galatasaray did have some chances, not a huge amount at all. It was definitely Liverpool's game. Which wasn't really something that we can say about them a lot this season. One of the other things that I thought was quite interesting was the Galatasaray goalkeeper, because while he did make some really bloody good saves, the scoreline would have been much, much bigger. He made some really good saves, but also when it was getting quite physical in terms of the corners, something that we've obviously seen a lot of in the Premier League this season, he didn't really seem to know how to deal with it. And McAllister was one of the key people who was having great crack winding him up and sort of, you know, getting a bit physical with him. And every time anybody come near him in the box, he just kept going down. And you're sort of going, that doesn't fill you with confidence, because if a strong wind is going to blow him over, how is he going to save any of the goals if it's like that and you scored a set piece goal? It makes sense because he wasn't confident with all the bodies around him on the set pieces. So in terms of saves from open play, he was very, very good. In terms of saves from I've lost the word corners. I forgot the word corners. Excellent stuff. He just wasn't particularly strong. So I thought that was interesting, the contrast. You know, with teams from other leagues, they're very unsure of how to deal with, and we saw that in a number of games throughout the last 2 days. But then we get to the penalty. The penalty on Szoboszlai. I thought it was a really silly penalty to give away, if I'm quite honest. Szoboszlai's running away from the goal. Why would you do that? Right. Why would you bring him down there? What he's going in direction. Let him keep running. He's literally running away from the goal. Why would you not let him continue to run? Why would you want to stop him running away from your goal? But anyway, it was a penalty. There was contact. You could see on his shin, like he was bleeding. He was literally bleeding. It was clearly a foul. Penalty was given. And then Salah just to top off a not very particularly good half for himself. It's not a very good penalty. Straight down the middle. Straight down the middle, which obviously when the keeper dives and misses and it goes down the middle, it looks lovely. But I mean, you're taking a pretty big risk. Considering he didn't go around the keeper or chip him for the earlier chance that normally he probably would have scored in seasons gone by, then missed a penalty, like, that's not good. It was a pretty bad first half for Salah, and you have to think for most players, unless you've got like seriously good mentality, unless you're like proper strong in that is going to put your head down. However, I actually thought he came out for the second half and he was much, much, much better in the second half. Obviously, Liverpool kind of come into their own then in the second half. Ekitike scores, making it 2-0. And I think it was around the 50th, 51st minute. It was about 5 minutes after half time. Do you know what I mean? Salah assisted that, which obviously was a much better start to a second half. And, you know, it shows he didn't put his head down. He didn't just accept defeat. It shows a strong mentality in him because he's aware of the criticism he's facing. It's something he's not used to dealing with. But he came out after half time, got the assist to a really good goal for Ekitike. And then Gravenberch makes it 3-0. So the keeper at that point had made a really good save. So as we talked about, he has made some good saves in the match. The rebound comes out and Gravenberch scores the rebound. At this point, Liverpool are starting to become rampant. So they were already the better team. The more the goals are going in, the more confident you can see the players are playing with for Liverpool. Then Galatasaray scored an own goal. However, Frimpong was offside in the build-up to that goal happening. And I would say the most relieved person on the pitch was the guy that scored the own goal. I'd say he was more than delighted that Frimpong was offside. So it stayed at 3-0. And I was watching the Liverpool match and I was watching the Spurs match. What was that thing called again? Spurs match. I've them on multiple screens, so I was watching it all, and you could just see the two Premier League teams were really on the front foot at this point. 60 minutes in, they're both playing really, really well, both on the front foot. And then a few minutes later, Mohamed Salah scores a fantastic goal, a really, really, really good goal. He is 50 Champions League goals. I mean, you can't sniff at that, can you? It was a great layoff. So Salah essentially set up himself, and then he had the layoff from Wirtz, and then he scores a goal. Really, really good goal. And it would remind you of a goal of seasons gone by. And as I said, like Salah in the first half and the second half, he was like two completely different players. However, he did then go off injured. He actually asked himself to be subbed off, so he obviously felt something, but he was able to walk off himself. So it wasn't overly serious, but you never like to see it when it's your own player. And then, speaking of injuries, the wee chap Lang, he had come on for Osimhen because Osimhen got injured, and then he banged into the board at the side, and you could see the blood, like gushing. There was blood, and then obviously they were taking it so seriously, stretching him off. But supposedly he is actually lumped off the top of his finger. Now, I'm not going to show you, I'm just going to share this bit. You won't see anything graphic though, so if you're a wee bit squeamish, don't worry, you're not going to see too much there. But so this is according to Eurofoot, but I've had a look and it does seem to be getting reported in multiple places. Noah Lang's finger was detached. And what it is, it's the top bit here where your nail bed is. It looks like it was literally like sliced as if a part of his finger was going to come off. But his finger was detached after he collided with an advertising board. The player will undergo surgery, obviously, to reattach it. Speedy recovery to him. Lang was stretchered off against Liverpool and was given, you can see him there sucking on the oxygen. You could see they were getting this to hold his hand in the air. You could see the part of the finger that was sort of chopped off was being covered. And you could see it was quite severe because of the reaction around it, the length of time they spent with him. But I mean, genuinely, not what you want to see. And then obviously they ended up having to go into like a third player playing in that same position for Galatasaray this evening. What I did think was actually a nice touch was obviously Galatasaray weren't allowed to have any regular fans in the stadium. They did have sort of a small VIP section, but it was up and it's for rich people, it's not normal fans. And you could see the Liverpool fans giving him a standing ovation as he's coming off the pitch. And I thought, you know what? It was nice, it's classy, and there's some things it's not about football like that. Like imagine the pain. So do you know what? Big to them. I thought it was classy. His own fans weren't there to clap him off the pitch, which is obviously what would normally happen in a circumstance like that. So I thought it was nice for the Liverpool fans to sort of step in lieu of the Galatasaray fans there and give him a clap off the pitch. Overall, really, really, really good performance by Liverpool. And one that surprised me personally, I didn't think it would be that good. I definitely didn't think it was going to win the game by scoreline. 4-0 is a massive scoreline. Galatasaray are not an easy team. They're not an easy team. You don't get this part of the Champions League being an easy team. It's a good win, particularly based on how Liverpool's season has gone so far. I think it's actually a really good second half for Mohamed Salah, who's had a difficult season. I thought it was nice to see Ekitike back on form because he had a fantastic start to the season. He was in shouts for player of the season. And then he sort of had a bit of a drop off. So it was really good to see him, obviously not as a United fan, but for Liverpool fans, I'm sure it was really good to see him firing again. And obviously the man of the moment, Sabozai, turning up again, absolutely smashing it and really helping his team out. So I want to get stuck into your comments. I see lots and lots of them coming in. So I'm going to scroll way back up and we will get stuck into those. So obviously I got as far as Hassam announcing his own raid as he entered the building. What were you guys saying? So was this the comment, Gunman? Is this the special comment that I missed? Gunman says, Lou, we battered Galatasaray because we played Jurgen Klopp ball, not slot ball. The most I ever seen Slot animated since he has been here. I have to say, he was incredibly animated on the sideline. He was losing the plot. There was one point he was jumping up and down like I don't know what he was doing, his jumping jacks on the sideline. But yeah, he was very, very animated this evening. And I've said this consistently. I personally, obviously, Arnie Slot gets a lot of credit for winning the Premier League, which is a pretty big achievement. Just ask Mikel Arteta. But I have consistently said that I feel like a lot of that was the momentum of what was already put in place by Klopp, and he basically carried the momentum over the line. And now these kind of changed it. Obviously, a lot of things happened in the summer. You've lost different players for different reasons. There's so many different factors. One of them is the fact that Arnie Slot then moved away from what Jurgen Klopp was doing to put his own stamp on things. And I do think that's been part of your problem this season, if not one of the main problems this season. So yeah, I agree with that completely. I think it's a good point. Christopher is saying Arsenal are massive. Football knowledge would like me to switch allegiances. I am supporting the wrong team and I need to sort myself out. Ridiculous carry on. And Goodman is saying you battered them regardless. You did indeed. You absolutely did. Unexpectedly, but you did. Ray is saying Galatasaray are legendary shithousers. Yes, and they do. They like to frustrate. They like to do things. So they lure you into doing silly things and that you get a man sent off. You get a yellow card and a second yellow and a dissent. They like to frustrate. So you do the silly thing. Obviously, tonight, it didn't work. Let me see. What else are we saying? Everybody's having a wee chat in the comments, which is what we like. We like a little chat, a little chill out, a little relaxation after all the shouting on Alahot. Um, what are we saying? Ino's is in the house. Lovely Ino's is here. Christopher is saying the best game tonight was Bayern. Kane was cooking. I was disappointed because I thought they were going to have to play their wee backup under 19 goalkeeper, the 16-year-old Prescott. I think he supposedly they'd had four different reasons for their four different keepers were going to be ruled out and they were going to have to call him up. But I saw that one of the other guys made a bit of a recovery and he ended up playing. And I didn't have that many screens. I didn't watch it. Obviously, they were always going to go through after the score from the first leg. But yeah, look, you can't not rate Kane, can you really? Shy Boy is in the house. Nice to have you in here. And he is wishing lots of love to the fellow Don Hassam regulars. And he is letting you all know to please smash a like. Excellent, excellent comment from Shy Boy. Got all the points. Don Hassam, chat, hit the like. I mean, what more could you want out of a comment? What else are we saying? Christopher is saying the second half was how Liverpool should be played. So I do think that that's the feeling amongst a lot of people tonight. Inos is saying Slot did his blood sacrifice for this W. I believe that came in when we were talking about Lang. So not to take him completely out of context. Gunman is saying, on a serious note, slot ball was not used tonight. Most pressing duels, most ground, 6xG. It was like clock ball. And obviously, clock ball was incredibly successful for the Liverpool fans. I can understand why you would want to see more of it. So, big win for Liverpool. Well done for you guys. It'll be interesting to see if that form follows you into the Premier League this weekend. I think, is it Brighton you guys are playing? Brighton are a little bit up and down this season. They're a little bit all over the place. When you think they're on a bad run, they start doing well. And, you know, they're always, I think, a little bit of a team where you don't know what might happen. But when you're going in off a bit of a high, it's the momentum. You know what I mean? And maybe, if Slot realizes that this worked, he might decide that he's going to go and do it again. You never know. You never know. However, as I'm a United fan, I'm sorry, guys. I can't leave you all feeling too happy this evening. So I have a little something I want to share with you guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you heard of this. Let me know if you think it's anything to it, complete nonsense. Get your thoughts in. But this is by journalist Vinny Grappa, and he is just leaving this here. So Bosley, obviously, as I said, the man of the moment, definitely has to be Liverpool's player of the season. And he was asked, who was your boyhood club? So he said, Real Madrid, of course. When you're young, you want players like Ronaldo and dream about playing at that level. Now, obviously, after what happened with Trent Alexander-Arnold, this must strike a little bit of fear into the hearts of Liverpool fans. You don't want to have him blossom the way he's done this season and then lose him the way you lost Arnold. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I just thought it was a very, very interesting quote to think about because obviously when he has a season like this is when he's going to start being on the radars of clubs like that. And, you know, you have to be careful. But Gunman is saying Arteta won the manager of the year, but I think his set piece coach was sitting down waiting to be called up. To be fair, on another video I was talking about this. Supposedly the set piece coach gets a bonus for every goal that's scored via a set piece this season at Arsenal. I mean, talk about motivation. Whatever it was, it worked. Maybe he's getting a Nando's for every single one of them. But I know. Let's go to that one next. Let's have a look at Barcelona Newcastle because that was a really, really good game. And I have to say, I actually thought if an English team was going to go through tonight, if you'd asked me which English team do you think is going to go through out of the three playing tonight, I would have put my money on Newcastle, if I'm being honest with you. And to be fair, they started really, really, really well. They started on the front foot. They were the better team to begin with. They were attacking the game, and they clearly went into it with some confidence, which Barcelona quickly snubbed out. They said, that's enough of that. We are going to score a goal. So after a fast-paced first few minutes from Newcastle, Rafinha makes it 1-0 to Barcelona. And then incredibly, and I say that it is incredible because I'm a Manchester United fan and I've seen this guy play before. Anthony Elanga scores to get Newcastle back into the tie against Barcelona in the Champions League. This is incredible because this man he's not terrible, but he's not particularly good. He's not even been particularly good since he's been at Newcastle. I believe it was only his second goal since he's joined Newcastle, but he decided in the knockout stage against Barcelona was when he was going to start putting his shooting boots on. And I have to say, it was a very good goal. But Anthony Elanga scored to make it 1-1 at the Nou Camp for Newcastle against Barcelona. And honestly, I just found that whole thing completely incredible. Also, it was a fantastic cross in by Hall, who has been having a very, very, very good season for Newcastle. So at this point, you're sort of thinking, okay, this is fine. It started well. They're continuing in the game. They've got back into it. They're not letting Barcelona run away. Okay, they can do this, yeah? Except they can't because then Barcelona make it 2-1. And you're like, right, okay, that's fine. It's still only a goal. Then Anthony Elanga comes up with another fantastic goal. Elanga got a brace against Barcelona at the Nou Camp in the Champions League. I can't believe that's a real sentence that I'm actually saying out loud. Just craziness. Elanga got a brace against Barcelona at the Nou Camp in the Champions League. I can't tell which part of that sentence is the craziest. But anyway, he did. He got them back in the game again, made it 2-2. Very good cross from Barnes this time, through the legs of the Barcelona player into Anthony Elanga, who scores. Now, just a few minutes after that, Joe Linton is literally absolutely dragged to the ground. I don't understand why it wasn't given as a foul. I don't understand why there wasn't a yellow. Didn't really get it. But I did wonder if maybe the referee was saving himself because he knew what the match was going to turn into and he didn't want to start out like handing out cards willy-nilly. But also, you can't ignore like important fouls when they happen because if you let a player away with that and they should be on a yellow, that means they get to do other things they probably wouldn't do if they already had the yellow. So just something I took a little note of when it actually happened. And then at that point, there was an attack and Dan Burn was basically left defending against two Barcelona players by himself, goes into the air, I believe it was against Lewandowski at this point, and actually gets the better off him, which I thought, fair play to you, Dan Burn. And never mind now Lewandowski, Dan Burn's got it covered. But you could see up until this point in the game, obviously Barcelona was scoring, Newcastle was scoring, it was end to end to end to end, but you could see that Barcelona for a little while were starting to struggle with Barnes particularly, but also with the Barnes and Hall link up. You could see that's where Newcastle were getting their success. But that wasn't to last, was it? Because it was about here that things started to go really downhill. So let me just get, because obviously there's loads to talk about, and I don't want to be missing too many of the comments. So let me get into what you guys are saying. Yes, so I noticed it was me there, Elanga Brace. Good man is saying Barca was cooking. They were, and we're about to discuss all the dishes that they cooked for Newcastle now in a little minute. And now, am I a Celt? Defo an Irish accent. You are from Wrexham. Yes, it is an Irish accent. Well spotted. I enjoyed myself on Paddy's Day there on Tuesday. I had a grand old time. But yeah, Irish accent. I couldn't deny it even if I wanted to. But getting back to the Barcelona cooking, as you call it, because that's what it was, it just absolutely went downhill. I mean, the penalty for Barcelona, it was a clear pull by Trippier. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really know why it wasn't a red card because Spurs, Van de Ven got a red card for basically the exact same thing last week. And I mean, they have been given red, it's dog so. It is a denial of a clear goal scoring opportunity. So what was given was the penalty and a yellow. I can't understand why it was a yellow card. And I don't mean like I can't understand because I'm thick. I mean, other instances of this, it is dog so. Red cards have been given. Van de Ven was given literally a red card for almost exactly the same thing. No red card given. I think it just shows an inconsistency. Do you know what I mean? And if you're a Spurs fan this evening saying that, you're going to feel a bit frustrated. Obviously, if you're a Newcastle fan, you're delighted. However, it feels like karma sort of kicked in a little bit. Obviously, it's not the Newcastle players' fault. It's not the Newcastle fans' fault. But I did feel a little bit like karma sort of kicked in. They didn't get the guy sent off when they probably should have. It was a silly pull. Do you know, and we've seen some silly things, and we've had people in chat saying, well, look, that's what happens. Your natural instinct takes over. You're not really thinking about it. And sometimes you do the silly thing, you know, without thinking, and then it's too late. So, look, I'm sure he was relieved not to have gotten a red card, but you do have to wonder why. I did think it was a little bit unfair. Um, Everybody smashed the like button. It says I notes, and let's face it, he wouldn't lead us astray our I notes. So we must hit the like button. Andrew is in the house. Nice to see Andrew back in the chat, and he is saying he didn't see Newcastle getting battered tonight. Definitely, definitely. I didn't see Newcastle getting battered even at the end of the first half. You know what I mean? I didn't. I just it blindsided me completely so much that I can't form a sentence, guys. Let me see. Oh dear, I'm pleading the fifth. I am pleading the fifth. Poor Hamza. I think Hamza is struggling enough tonight without anybody making fun of his wee head, bless him. But as I said, it really did start to go downhill from there. The goals started just absolutely pouring in. So Yamal scores the penalty, 3-2. You go in at half time, and I'm thinking, okay, they'll be able to, you know, Newcastle, they've come back twice already. Surely they can come back again. It's only a goal. You know, it's fine. I thought very intelligent by Eddie Howe. He substituted Trippier at halftime. Livramento came on because obviously Trippier was very, very lucky to get away with only a yellow in the first half, and Eddie Howe clearly was not going to take any chances, none whatsoever, going forward. So he took him off at halftime, Livramento onto the pitch, and then we had more goals. So then you had Lopez's goal, 4-2, Lewandowski, 5-2, Lewandowski again, 6-2. I mean, it just was getting worse and worse and worse. And then right there, 72nd minute, 7-2. Rafinha gets another goal. Unbelievable scoreline for a single match. I mean, 7-2 looks like the aggregate score. That is the score for the match. And you just have to wonder what happened to Newcastle. Because I actually think in the first leg, Newcastle were the better team. And only they gave away a very silly penalty. They would have come into this match ahead. They would have been 1-0 up. They then started the first half the better team. And when Barcelona did start going, Newcastle were coming back at them. It was very evenly matched. And then in the second half, the whole thing fell off a cliff. Not only wheels fall off, the whole car broke up. And it was just crazy to see at the time. And I actually just want to show you guys this. Let me share my screen. I gotta press the right buttons. There we are. Newcastle's loss to Barcelona gives them the worst Champions League knockout defeat by any English club ever. Now, obviously, this is a single match. It's not over it's not the aggregate score. This is the worst score in a single match in a knockout game. Not a record anybody wants to be having. You can see there Eddie Howe looking very sad. You can't really blame him. He's probably wondering what the hell happened as well. But I mean, it's not a record anybody wants. And some of you will know, some of you won't. We have the very lovely Mama Flossie in the channel. She's one of the lovely moderators we have. She's a Newcastle fan. Some of you will know her actually from Hassam's channel. Some of you will know from actually Mo from MHF. Some of you will know her from other channels, but she's very lovely. And so I really do feel for the fans because you're going into it with a bit of hope and you're coming out of it. And then they're actually going in. Their match this weekend is a derby. They're playing Sunderland this weekend. And I mean, it's a serious rivalry that I didn't understand until Flossie and Ash explained it to me, but it's a very serious rivalry. This is not the kind of result you want before you go into a derby against your local rivals. It's not what anybody needs in their life. So I do. I feel sorry for the fans. I also feel sorry for myself because as somebody who was hoping my team was going to make it into a bloody European competition next year, preferably the Champions League, because it gives us a bit of budget for the transfer window. I need all of the Premier League teams to do well in these European competitions. And lads, some of you have been letting us down. Some of you have been letting us down. Manchester City, Chelsea, Newcastle. I'm looking at you, okay? Arsenal have pulled it out of the bag. Liverpool have pulled it out of the bag. Are you joking me? I now have to want Liverpool and Arsenal to do well in the Champions League so that my team can be in it next year. Thanks very much, lads. I would have really preferred if Spurs and Newcastle had just sorted it out. That would have been grand. But no, we'll have to do it the hard way, obviously. But Ray is saying, I know as fans we never like getting thumped badly, but there's no difference between getting knocked out of the Champions League 7-2 or 2-2 on penalties. And to be fair, that's a really good point, and it's a really nice consolation point from Ray. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants to see it. Obviously, we'll have all the banter, we'll have all the laugh, we'll have all the joke, and a bit of crack, a bit of fun. It's painful to see your club get a result like that. It's not good. And obviously, we talk about positive momentum for Liverpool going into their match of the weekend. We now have to think about the negative potential sort of momentum for Newcastle going to our local derby with Sunderland. But you're right, the outcome is the same. If you lose 7-2 or if you draw 2-2 and then go out on penalties, the result is the same. You're not in the competition anymore. One of them, I suppose, is just a little bit more embarrassing. It's about your pride, isn't it? You leave our Ray alone. Our Ray's lovely, you big bully. But let's get on. Speaking of teams that have let us down in terms of European football, Spurs. Spurs were a really mixed bag because I actually thought the Spurs result, obviously in the first half, there was a controversy. The first leg, there was a controversy around the goalkeeper, the substitution. Essentially, it was 15 minutes of madness. And then I thought after that, they overall gave a reasonable account of themselves in that match. And then you go into the match this evening, I thought it was a very, very good start by Spurs. They started really well. Again, they started confident. And you know what? You're starting to see now, I believe, the impact of Igor Tudor on the dressing room. You're starting to see the attitude change. You can see the way the players are behaving, the way they're carrying themselves, the feeling, that thing you can't touch, the intangibles. You can start to feel that now. And I think tonight we started to see a little bit of the impact of Igor Tudor, and it was a good one. But before we go any further into this match, Marv, have you been on the happy juice? Marv is a United fan like me. We're getting third, maybe even second. I think we have a good shout of third, actually, to be fair, because Villa are definitely falling off. Chelsea are all over the shop. So unless Liverpool sort of do a madness, which I don't think they're going to overtake us, to be honest with you, I think we're probably pretty good for third, barring something crazy, or bar ourselves completely just wrecking the gaff. I don't think we're going to get second. However, we are closer to Manchester City in second than Manchester City are to Arsenal. So, I mean, it's not totally crazy. It's not the craziest thing I've ever heard because we might. It's only 7 points. So it's only 7 points for us to catch City. It's 9 points for City to catch Arsenal, 10 points for City to catch Arsenal. So, crazier things. I think it's unlikely, but crazier things. I think we're more or less the shoe-in for Champions League, though, which is good. That is what we want. Gunman would like me to explain Arteta's tactics. I mean, I'm not sure I'm qualified for that. Where they give the ball to the opposition team and get a corner. They had 10 corners against Everton. To be fair, And I'm going to be specifically about Everton on this one. Everton do my brain in because they absolutely mauled our keeper on the corners. They actually are they are the worst I have seen this season for corners. Not a fan. And I think if Tarkovsky had been fit to play against Arsenal, I think it would have been very interesting to see the corners versus the corners. To be fair, I'm one of the people where the set pieces doesn't really bother me. It's not one of those things. See the long throws, the set pieces, it doesn't annoy me. What I am not a fan of, and again, it's a personal preference, what I'm not a fan of is pass, 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 side to side, side to side to side. I find that incredibly boring. Again, it's a personal preference. It's not for me. However, if it works for you, it wins your team games, you're not going to complain. So I'm not going to say it too much. Also, United have been reasonably good at set pieces this season, so I'm just going to cope. I'm okay with that. But I do know that it bothers some other people. But back to Spurs and Atletico Madrid. Spurs had a really good start into the match. You could see that they had a belief that they could maybe get back into the tie. If they could maybe score the 3 goals, that they could at least bring it to penalties and that then it was an even chance for both. Tell had a really good game. Tell was really, really involved in everything. He was the main guy. He was pushing, he was going forward, he was attacking, he was trying to make things happen. Really, really good match from him. And it actually then, to get 1-0 for Spurs, it came from a Tell cross into Colin Moani. Moani scored essentially a header. There was nobody marking him and into the back of the net. I did think it had been coming. Tell had been pushing and pushing and pushing. Right after the Spurs goal, there was a good spell of possession then for Atletico Madrid, but he didn't really do anything with it other than basically take a break from having to defend against Spurs. So again, what we talked about earlier, no point in having all the possession if you're not going to do anything with it. You have to actually do something with it for it to mean anything. At this point, Atletico Madrid just didn't really. So it was getting to a point where you're thinking Spurs probably need another goal just to, they needed 3. You were getting towards the end of the first half. You're thinking, right, they've got 1, that's good. They've been on top, that's good. They've been the better team, that's good. But they need to score another goal. And preferably they're going to want to do it before half time. They did not. So it goes in half time, 1-0 to Spurs. Obviously, then, straight after half time, Atletico Madrid comes straight out and score. And then it's 1-1. And you're thinking, okay, Spurs needed the second goal. They should have got the second goal when they were having the opportunities. And like that, I saw a few people talking about Liverpool earlier in their match saying, look, they're getting all these chances, they're all these attacking plays, they're not taking their opportunities. Is this going to cause a problem for them later in the match? Are they going to regret this? Obviously, in Liverpool's case, that isn't what happened. However, in Spurs' case, it was a little bit because they won. Then Xavi Simons gets the second goal. So, like 2-1 then, which obviously Spurs are back to winning, but it's not good because they need 3. They need to win by 3. So it's obviously they're happy to get the goal. They're happy to go back ahead, but it needs to be more. They needed the second goal before Atletico Madrid scored an equaliser. But look, I thought it was good because they were actually back. They're actually fighting back. They're actually normally heads would drop there. We've seen the attitude of some of the Spurs players this season in both the way they carry themselves, their behaviour, and the things they've done on the pitch, and the silly decisions they've made. And I actually thought they did really well to keep their head up, to stay in the match, and to get the goal back. But it needed to be more. Then there's a bit of a coming together. There's a bit of a melee. There's a bit of an argument. And one of the Atletico Madrid players, there was a bit of a coming together. And the Atletico Madrid player ends up on the ground, jumps up off the ground, and pushes Dragusin in the chest. And everybody gets involved. It starts to kick off. A yellow card is given. And at first I was wondering, could there be a red here? Could this be violent conduct? VAR did have a look at it. They showed the replay. Look, to be fair, he jumped up and he had a bit of a push. He was clearly annoyed, but I think probably a yellow was the right decision because if we start giving red cards for just every single bit of contact on the pitch, it will become a non-contact sport, which obviously would take away a part of what a lot of us love about football. So I think a yellow card was the right decision, but I did see why VAR looked at it in the first place. Then, then we had the Atletico Madrid keeper making really, really good save from a shot from Pedro Porro, and it really was a good shot. Then, after these opportunities that were missed by Spurs, 2-2. We get to 2, which is obviously not what Spurs wanted to see. This is the 75th minute. It's 2-2. You kind of know at this point Spurs are out. They're not going to go on and score 3 goals to get it to extra time and penalties. It's just absolutely not going to happen. So you're sort of thinking, well, are they gonna put the heads down now? They know more or less that they're done. Are they gonna put the heads down and just give up and, float through the tide? They don't though. I have to say it's the best attitude I've seen from Spurs in ages, and I've watched quite a number of their matches this season. It's the best I've seen their attitude in a long time. They kept their heads up, they kept fighting, they fought for to win the match at the very least. They knew probably at that point they were going out. They knew they weren't gonna stay in the competition. But again, we talk about momentum. They needed a good performance. They needed a good result. They needed to show that they could fight, that they could stay in it, and to give something back to their fans. Their fans who, bless them, have been through a horrible time and might have more to go through. Both keepers were making really good saves. Obviously, I've mentioned the Atletico keeper making some really good saves, but Vicario also made some really good saves. Unfortunately, one of his saves did lead to a corner. Why have I got that? Sorry. Excuse me while I decipher my own. Yeah, so it did lead to a corner. But look, there was definitely a threat. There was definitely a threat from Atletico Madrid. There's no denying that. It was a difficult match for Spurs. But, but they stuck to it. They stayed in it. And in the end, they did go and get a third goal. Xavi Simons scored at the end. I believe it was penalty, clear penalty. 89th, 89th minute. Yes, I can read my own writing. So Xavi Simons scored penalty. It was a penalty. It was a clear penalty. It was well taken penalty. He got it in the back of the net. Spurs win on the night. I think it was probably deserved. On the balance, I think it was deserved. I think overall they were the better team. And I think it'll be very interesting to see if Igor Tudor's tactics are starting to kick in. If Igor Tudor is starting to get through to the Spurs players, I think it's going to make the relegation battle very, very, very interesting because people were starting to, and myself included, were starting to come to the conclusion Spurs just had no fight. Their players were giving up. They were getting themselves sent off left, right, and centre for silly things, silly fouls, silly cards. There was no discipline. They were jumping ship. They were already sorting their moves for the summer. Essentially, they'd completely given up. They were absolutely going down. I think the match tonight not necessarily stops that, but I do think it might give a little bit of hope to the Spurs fans if they can take this performance and they can take that into the Premier League and they can play like that every single match until the end of the season, they have a possibility of staying up. But they have to turn up like that every match, not just some of them, not just when they feel like it, not when they're not tired or nobody's annoyed them. Every single match they need to play like that. If they play like that every match, they could stay up. So I think it's just made things very interesting. It has set the cat amongst the pigeons. But let me see what you guys are saying. I see Gunman. Gunman is flat out in the chat. But what is our Marv saying? Marv is saying Villa is going all in on the Europa. I hope they do for two reasons. The further they go, the better for us, for the coefficient. Also, if they're concentrating on Europa, it means they're not going to try and keep fighting us for the Champions League spot. So I hope they do go all in on the Europa. And to be fair, it seems like the kind of thing Emery might do. So I'm in for that. Mark also says it looks promising for Spurs to stay up, and I agree. If they play like they did tonight, something just felt a bit different. You know, when you just get a vibe. I think something has changed. How am I awake? I am awake because I drink an enormous amount of caffeine. The name Still the Tea Lou essentially comes not only from my love of talking, as you can probably tell, but also from my love of tea, coffee, and other caffeine drinks. Love it. So I am a little bit of a night owl, to be fair. Also, the kid was close to cutting his hair, the United Strand lad. Then he drew a game. He got to cut his mad hair. You know what it is? And I'm not being funny. I think that started out as a bit of fun, something quite innocent. I don't think there was much to it. And I think now it has become this big, big thing that it was never intended to be. And to be honest, see, he 1-4 drew 1, 1-4 drew 1 for the entire season, we'd be up there with Arsenal. So I'm not going to be too worried. The fact that we obviously if we win 5 in a row, 6, 7, we go on a run and run. I'm not going to complain. But I mean, if we do 4 wins, 1 draw, 4 wins, 1 draw for the rest of the season or for an entire season, I wouldn't complain. He can turn into cousin it if he wants, once the club is and the team is doing well on the pitch. I think it kind of turned into something it wasn't intended to be, and I don't think he knows how to stop now. So I think he just needs to quiet. Or his mom. Somebody needs to get involved and be like, we're taking you to the bar, sunshine. Let me see. What else I was saying? Marv makes you wonder what might have happened if Igor started his regular goalkeeper. This is very true. What I will say in his defence was a lot of the Spurs fans were saying that Beccario wasn't it and were calling for this goalkeeper Kinsley to be played. And then when it didn't work, everybody was like, that's a terrible idea. Why did he do that? I mean, a lot of people were calling for it, and I don't think he did it because people wanted it and people asked for it. But I think a lot of people were on the same wavelength. A lot of people would have picked Kinski. So how can you be mad at him for doing something that you would have done? Do you know what I mean? Obviously, it didn't work out in the end. But if it had worked, you would have been called a genius, and he should have done it sooner. And why did he persevere with Vicario when this guy was on the bench the whole time? So I think sometimes you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. But yeah, I think it definitely would have been very interesting because I think what lost this tie for Spurs, like the overall, was actually 15 minutes of madness in the first leg. 15 minutes in the first leg, that is what lost this tie for Spurs. Because I think after that 15 minutes, for the whole rest of the first leg and for the second leg, I think Spurs were overall the better team. And I think they should be really disappointed it didn't go through. But I actually think that's a positive because if you're playing so well, you should be disappointed you're not getting through to the last day of the Champions League. That is something to build on. And given where they are at the moment, I think they should be taking any little glimmer of hope that they can get. But look, guys, we have been live for an hour. An hour already. The time flies when you're having fun. So I'm going to take Ray's comment and then I'm going to finish up the stream. I want to say thank you very, very much to everybody who came across from John Hassam's channel, for everybody who got involved, for everybody who stuck around, because I know myself, I'm very much a viewer as well. When you get redirected to somebody's channel, when it's somebody new, when it's somebody you don't know, when all you see is a plain wall, there's no branding, there's no exciting stuff for you to look at, sometimes you go, I'm leaving. I don't know this person. I don't like what they're doing. I don't like their background. I'm out of here. And over 100 of you lovely people have stayed from the redirect the whole way through the entire stream. And I so appreciate from the bottom of my heart the fact that you've taken the time to listen to the stream. If you would possibly subscribe, that would be fantastic. So I'm on the road to 500 subscribers. I'm really, really working my little tushy off to get there. So I would really appreciate if you've enjoyed the stream, if you would consider please subscribing. I would enjoy that very much. Join the teacup crew. Most days it is like the Mad Hatter's tea party in these streams. Obviously it's past some people's bedtimes, but we're normally live 12 in the day. So midday I'll do a live, and then in the evening time it's normally 7:30. If there's an 8 o'clock match, I'll go with 7 instead. So I'll go a little bit earlier just so we don't overlap with the football. But yeah, if you like what you see, please stick around and join in with us. Smash the like button and give yourselves a nice pat on the back for being here. Good man, I've won him over. I've won him over, lads. We opened with what is this shit? We're ending with no, you're really cool. I mean, that's the win from me. We'll have to keep him. We'll have to keep him. What did you say about Pep on Sunday? Um, if Pep wins Sunday, the momentum swings to Pep and he has a 9 point gap from Arteta, but he has a game in hand. They gotta go at the Etihad. It's over. It's not over. It's not over. Look, you can never say never in football. I do think I would be astounded if they come back, though. This isn't old Pep. Erling Haaland's having a bit of a quiet spell by his own standards, not by everybody else's, but by his normal standards. There's something just missing. Do you know that je ne sais quoi? That little feels like it's missing. But I do think you're right. I think on Sunday, the momentum could swing. However, bold statement, because I will be doing a bit of a quick match for that. But my hot take is I think Arsenal are going to win. I really do think Arsenal are going to win that. Can't believe I'm saying it. Can't believe I'm saying it. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I think it's possible. But Ray said I was on some Spurs channels. They were all backing Kinsley at the start. One was literally bigging him up the moment of his first mistake. And that is the thing. Everybody was asking for it. When it was done and it didn't work out, everybody went, no, not me. I wasn't asking for it. Bad decision. Bad decision. Do you know what I mean? So, but if it had worked out, everybody would have said, oh, well, we told him. We said that. We've been saying that for ages. Do you know what I mean? So I think you have to sort of think about that as well sometimes. And thank you very much, Marv. Marv is saying it is a great show as always. Thank you very much, my lovely. Thank you very much to absolutely everybody who joined, everybody who listened. Please smash a like if you haven't done so already. Please do consider subscribing. I would love to see you back here again. I will be live at 12 tomorrow, midday, to have a lovely chat with you guys in the sunshine or maybe the rain because I live in Ireland. Have a lovely rest of your night and I will talk to you all very soon, hopefully. Have a good one.